welcome you all and let you know how pleased we are in being able to support OECD with their valuable study and in hosting this meeting here today, where they will be releasing the preliminary findings. And I believe that those findings and your participation and contribution and feedback will go a long way in ensuring that Thunder Bay region will be well poised for long-term prosperity in the future. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great day, and I will now pass it on to Sylvain for introductions.
So thank you, Frank, and thank you for hosting this meeting. Thanks to all for giving us a share of your time. This is very much appreciated. So I'm from the OECD. You probably know what the OECD is, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It's based in Paris. It's an international organization where countries come to share their experience in policy, whether it is from tax policy to social policy. We cover a broad range of topics. And myself and Jonathan, we are in the LEED division, which deals with local economic and economic development. And the purpose is to see how we can better implement a range of policies from the federal, provincial, local level, from the economic to social side, employment side, to get better results. And this project that brings us today to Ontario, from the Bay, is really much in this sort of issues. We're looking at how labor market policy and training, so all the human resource development side of policies, can better contribute to job creation and quality job creation. So it's not really an assessment of how employment policies function, or it's not really an assessment of the efficiency of labor market programs. It's more how labor market policies and training, so the role of community colleges, universities, workforce boards, and all employment programs can set the foundations and assist creation of jobs in the economy. So we're looking at issues like how we can go beyond placing people into work, how we can help them to progress into the labor market in employment, especially if they have little skills. How we can, beyond producing the skills that the economy needs, how we can help the economy to use those skills so that firms can become more productive and in turn generate better quality jobs. So this is the sort of issues that these are the sort of issues that we're looking at this project. And here we are going to present for the first time some initial results from that in Ontario, and especially the area of Thunder Bay. It's meant to be a very informal discussion. So we want to test with you some results and maybe areas for policy recommendations for all levels, for practices at the local level, but also for the provincial government, for the federal government. So it's really an area that it's the time to discuss very informally and to share our views on these topics. So I'll give the floor to Jonathan, who will talk you through the methodology for this project, and then we'll go straight into our result.
Before I go through the methodology, it'd probably be helpful if we just do a roundtable for everybody to introduce themselves and what organization they're with. So I'm Jonathan Barr. I'm with the OECD LEED program.
Thomas Townsend. I'm the consultant that's been working on the OECD LEED study here in Thunder Bay.
Joe McDonald. I'm from Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities in Toronto.
I'm Randy Everett at the Upjohn Institute in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I'm doing the U.S. Counterpart to what
Colin Roman, Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities in the office here in Thunder Bay.
Morning, John DiGiacomo with the Schnabik Employment and Training.
I'm Kathy Lidbeck with the Thunder Bay Multicultural Association and the Northwestern Ontario Immigration.
I'm Normand Roy. I'm from the Emploi Québec, which is the public employment service of Quebec.
Good morning, McDowell. I'm from Human Resources and Skills Development.
Frank Bolia, co-chair of business with the Workforce Planning Board.
Jackie Raynard, North Superior Workforce Planning Board.
I'm Steve Beal. I'm the Project and Research Manager with the North Superior Workforce Planning Board and Video Film Extraordinaire.
I'm Elodie Bedoué with the Francophone Association in Western Ontario.
I'm Marie Weslowski, and I'm with Literacy Northwest, which is a regional network for adult literacy programs in the Northwest region, and I'm also a member of the North Superior Workforce Planning Board.
Rhea Molly. I'm from the Thunderbay Social Services Administration.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Rodman from Northwestern, and works at Confederation College delivering services.
Good morning, I'm Rick Windsor from Yes Employment Services here at Thunderbay.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. So I'll start by just giving a brief overview of the methodology and some of the data analysis work that we've done, and then I'll pass it to Thomas, who will give us an overview of the initial findings. And like Sylvain said, it's really informal today. We want to get your feedback, so it's an open discussion on all the results. It's a cross-comparative study that we're doing, so we have 11 countries involved. So we use the same methodology because of the comparative analysis. So what we start with is a data collection and mapping phase, and what we're seeking to do is understand the key labor market challenges facing a country or a region. And then we also map a diagnostic tool that we've developed, which compares the supply and demand of skills at the regional level. In each country, we have a national and local expert. In this case, we have Thomas working with us, so from the University of Ottawa. And the expert undertakes a lot of the research and interviews, so researching program and policy documents, and then interviewing local stakeholders. And in each country, we have 2 case study areas, 1 to 2 case study areas. In Canada, it's a bit of a special case because we're looking at Ontario and Quebec. And in Ontario, we're looking at Thunder Bay and Hamilton. So one of the tasks is looking at the sort of institutional relationships. So looking at which ministries are involved in employment policies, how that happens, the relationship between the national, the provincial, and the local level, and how institutions and organizations are working together. And then one of the key tasks is applying what we call a local job creation dashboard. Essentially, it's a 100-question document which asks a lot of a range of policy and program questions along 4 thematic areas. And it's the tool that we use to assess local practice in terms of job creation policies. It's structured along the 4 areas you can see here. And under each thematic area, there's 4 sub-criteria that we look at, and you'll see what those are when we go through the results. The first thematic area is better aligning policies and programs to local economic development. It's really, we're looking at the governance arrangements. So how much flexibility is provided in the federal, provincial policy frameworks to local stakeholders to adjust programming on the ground. What's the level of coordination between employment stakeholders with college and training stakeholders? As well as the use of evidence, so how evidence is used to inform policy and program planning. The second theme is adding value through skills. It's really looking at the responsiveness of the college system to employer demand, how employers are engaged with the college system. The third is targeting policy to local employment sectors. This is looking at how a region is building on its competitive advantage by focusing on specific sectors. It's also looking at how work is being done with employers to improve the utilization of the skills of the existing workforce already. The last theme is inclusion. So this is looking at how employment and training programs are targeted to at-risk groups, what's being done around immigration, so foreign credential recognition to ease the transition for immigrants coming into a country, as well as youth employment programs and what's happening around those. In each country and region, we conduct a study visit where we present the preliminary findings, and we're really seeking feedback. And the idea is that we'll refine these findings and develop a report with some practical sort of recommendations for how policies can be improved. So after these meetings, we'll be doing that over the next few months. And then the idea is that we'll be developing an action plan. So with these recommendations, what sort of things can be taken forward to improve the policy framework and the programs that are in place. In terms of the data analysis that we do, as I mentioned, we apply a diagnostic tool. Our research has showed it's all well and good to raise the supply of skills in an area through post-secondary education attainment, but you also have to make sure that these skills are being utilized by employers. Otherwise, you get situations of skills mismatch. So to understand the relationship at the regional level, we developed this 4-quadrant typology. Areas where there's a high supply of skills, being matched by a high demand, are what we call in a high skill equilibrium. The opposite of that is where there's a low supply of skills being matched by low demand, and that's what we call areas that are in a low skill equilibrium. Typically, these areas tend to be more rural, and it typically means that the wages are low and the quality of jobs are not very good. And then outside of those two areas, we have skills surplus. So this is, the supply is greater than the demand. People won't stay around the region because they can't find a job commensurate with their skills, and they'll move to another center. And then skills gaps and shortages, we know that what that is, employers are looking for a specific skill set and they're simply not finding it. So for Ontario, we've mapped economic regions using 2006 and 2011 data to look at trends over time. So here, I know the graph it's a bit messy, but you can see the Northwest economic region, which would be where Thunder Bay falls in, is kind of right in the middle. So right where the two axes meet in 2006. And what we see then from 2011 is it actually moves into a skills shortage and gap quadrant. So this suggests that employers, are looking for specific skills but not actually finding them. So, and what we do is the indicators we use is supply. We're looking at the percentage of post-secondary education attainment. And on the demand axis, we're looking at the percentage of medium to high skilled occupations in a region as well as wages. So, and what we do is we map it, it's weighted on the provincial median. So these regions are compared unto themselves. So you see the movement relative to themselves. The other thing we've done is we've correlated it to the unemployment rate, the provincial unemployment rate. And here you can see where regions fall within the four-quadrant typology and how their unemployment. So it's actually quite interesting because you see Toronto, for example, is a high skill equilibrium, but an unemployment rate above the provincial average. So, I mean, this even speaks to local labor markets within regions and within cities, because you would think Toronto being a big city would have a better unemployment rate than the provincial average, right? Interestingly, with the Northwest, the provincial average was below, the unemployment rate was below the provincial average. So I think we wanted to sort of get your feedback on this tool, and really, the tool for us is saying that the region, there are skills gaps and shortages here, or there's been a trend towards that from 2006 to 2011. So I think we want to get your feedback on kind of, does that correlate with your understanding of the local labor market here? I know with the Northwest economic region, it's quite a big geography, and the Thunder Bay CMA is quite different than the rest of the area, but does this trend still align with kind of what you're seeing here? So we'll stop there and open it up for any comments or questions.
What criteria are you using to make that determination? What factors are you using?
Well, as I said, we use 3 indicators to map this tool. So on the supply side, it's the percentage of people with post-secondary education attainment. And demand is, we're looking at wages, and then the percentage of medium to high skilled occupations. So we'd be looking at NOCS, National Occupational Classification. So it's a crude measure. We're using those 3 indicators to map, but it gives a picture of kind of, looking at skills mismatch, for example, at the regional level. Go ahead.
With information and the data that's gathered from adult literacy basic skills programs throughout Northwestern Ontario, yes, it's clearly identified that individuals accessing programs that do not have a high school diploma, and or at some degree, in some cases they do have a high school diploma, but perhaps it was attained a number of years ago, that it's no longer adequate, and they're having a difficult time finding employment because of the entry-level job requirements.
So employers are actually seeking different skills than people are coming out.
Definitely.
Did anybody else have any comments or questions? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I think what we're seeing is that newcomers that are arriving are highly skilled, and they are coming because they've been recruited because of the lack of employers finding someone in the region. So we have folks being recruited from all around the world, or from Ottawa and Toronto. So there are job fairs that are happening for underemployed in Toronto and in Ottawa for positions here in our region.
So maybe what we'll do is we'll move on to the main results, and Thomas will take us through the dashboard results that we have for Thunder Bay. Just briefly before he gets into the results, what we do, a key output of the dashboard is we develop this graphic that you see here. which is supposed to be a visual representation of the strengths and weaknesses of the policy framework. It's not meant to be an evaluation. It's a comparative analysis with the other regions and countries that are participating. So as I mentioned, there's the 4 thematic areas, and under each theme, there's 4 sub-criteria that we look at, and we attach a score between 1 and 5 to represent the strengths and weaknesses of the policy approach that's taken. So with that said, I'll pass it to Thomas, who will take us through each thematic area, and we're hoping to stop after each area to discuss the results.
Excuse me, may I ask, will a copy of the PowerPoint be made available, or are we expected to keep notes throughout the session?
Yeah, we can circulate that.
Please, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So we'll circulate that after the meeting.
Okay, so the first theme is on aligning policies and programs to the local conditions. And for those of you that were interviewed, there was a series of approximately 40 questions. Now, I didn't go through each of those questions with you. Our interviews were semi-structured, and so I was keeping those questions in the back of my head and then coding them after the interviews from the notes that I took during the interviews. So that's one source of information that went into this. The other source is an e-questionnaire that was sent out